The kettle's whistle pierced through my silent tears at 9:17 p.m. on a Tuesday night. I was curled in the corner of the kitchen, trying to cry without making a sound, a skill I'd perfected over 17 years of practice. But apparently, even my silence was wrong. "What the fuck are you doing?" Dad's voice cut through the steam rising from the stove. "My name is Lily, and I'd been crying because I'd just opened my college rejection letter. Not because I wasn't smart enough, my grades were perfect, but because Dad had sabotaged my application by calling the admissions office, pretending to be me, and withdrawing it. I'd only found out through the rejection letter that said, 'As per your telephone request to withdraw.' I asked you a question," Dad said, stepping closer. The kettle continued to shriek behind him. "Nothing," I whispered, wiping my face quickly. "Crying about that college bullshit again?" He laughed, the sound sharp and mean. "You're not even crying properly. What is this fake tears for attention?" Mom walked in from the living room, wine glass in hand, her fourth of the evening. "Is she performing again? Look at her," Dad gestured at me with disgust. "Sitting there with her little silent tears, trying to make us feel guilty. If you're going to cry, at least make it believable." I pressed myself further into the corner, but my eyes flickered to the shelf above the refrigerator. 2 weeks ago, I'd hidden a nanny cam there, disguised as an old cookbook. I'd bought it with cash saved from tutoring jobs, knowing that one day I'd need proof. The red recording light was invisible from where they stood, but I could see it, recording everything. "Your crying is as worthless as you are," Dad said, turning back to the stove. "Too quiet to be real, too pathetic to matter." That's when he picked up the kettle. I saw it happening in slow motion. The way he wrapped a dish towel around the handle, the deliberate way he turned toward me, the steam still rising from the spout. Mom didn't move to stop him. She took another sip of wine. "Let me give you something real to cry about," he said. "Then we'll see if you can make some actual noise." The water hit my arms like liquid fire. I'd raised them instinctively to protect my face, and the boiling water poured over my forearms, soaking through my thin shirt, spreading across my skin like acid. The pain was beyond anything I'd ever felt, beyond his punches, beyond his slaps, beyond his kicks. This was pure agony. But I didn't scream. Maybe it was shock. Maybe it was defiance. Maybe it was knowing that the camera needed to capture their reactions, not mine. I bit through my own lip to stay silent, blood mixing with tears as my skin immediately began to blister. "Now you have a reason to cry properly," Dad sneered, setting the empty kettle back on the stove like he'd just watered a plant. Mom actually clapped. Slow, sarcastic applause. "Your skin finally matches your ugly soul," she said, giggling at her own joke. Red and ruined. I looked down at my arms. The skin was already bubbling, angry welts forming where the water had made contact. Second-degree burns at least, maybe third in some spots. The pain was so intense it had gone beyond feeling, into a white-hot numbness that I knew would come back as agony soon. "Still not crying right," Dad observed, tilting his head. "Maybe I should get more water." "I need the hospital," I managed to whisper. "You need to shut up," Mom said. "Put some ice on it and stop being dramatic." Ice on burns. Even in my state, I knew that would make it worse. But that was probably the point. They left me there on the kitchen floor, Mom returning to her show, Dad going to his garage workshop. I waited 5 minutes, then 10, making sure they were really gone. Then I crawled to the bathroom, every movement sending fresh waves of pain through my arms. I didn't put ice on the burns. Instead, I ran cool water over them, documenting everything with my phone. The blisters were forming fast, the skin peeling in places, the pattern of the water's path clear as a map across my arms. Then I did something they didn't expect. I called my friend Marcus. Marcus was 18, had his own car, and most importantly, his mom was a nurse who'd been suspicious about my injuries for years. "I need you to come get me," I said when he answered. "Bring your mom. It's an emergency." 20 minutes later, I heard a car in the driveway. I'd packed a bag, just essentials and the memory card from the nanny cam, which I'd retrieved while Dad was in the garage. My arms were wrapped in clean towels, but the pain was getting worse, not better. "Jesus Christ, Lily," Marcus's mom, Patricia, gasped when she saw me. One look at my arms and her face went from concerned to furious. "We're going to the hospital right now." "My parents." "Your parents can deal with me," she said firmly. Dad came out when he heard the car. "Where do you think you're going?" "The hospital," Patricia said, her voice cold and professional. "She has severe burns that need immediate treatment." "She's fine," Dad said, but his voice wavered. He hadn't expected witnesses. I'm a registered nurse, Patricia stated. These are second and third degree burns. If you try to stop me from getting her medical care, I'll call 911 right now and have you arrested for child endangerment. Mom appeared in the doorway. She did it to herself. The dramatic little. I have it on video, I said quietly. Everyone froze. What? Dad's face went pale. I held up my phone with my less damaged hand. Everything. The kettle. The water. Your words. Mom clapping. Everything. The silence stretched out like a taut wire. You're lying, Mom said, but her voice was uncertain. The nanny cam above the refrigerator, I said. I installed it 2 weeks ago. It uploads automatically to the cloud. Dad lunged toward me, but Marcus stepped between us. Touch her and I'll drop you, he said quietly. Marcus was on the wrestling team, built like a linebacker. Dad stopped. We're leaving now, Patricia announced. And if either of you follow us, I'm calling the police immediately. At the hospital, everything moved fast. The burns were worse than even Patricia had thought. The doctor, a woman named Dr. Gupta, took one look and admitted me immediately. How did this happen? She asked while treating the burns. My father poured boiling water on me, I said clearly. I have it on video. She stopped what she was doing. You have evidence? I showed her the video on my phone. She watched it once, her face going from professional to horrified to furious. I need to make some calls, she said. Within an hour, my room was full of people. Police officers, a social worker, a detective specializing in domestic violence cases. They all watched the video. They all had the same expression afterward, disgust mixed with determination. This is attempted murder, the detective, Officer Williams, said. Boiling water can kill. He knew that. The mother is just as guilty, the social worker added. She watched and applauded. They arrested my parents that night. Dad was charged with attempted murder, aggravated assault, and child abuse. Mom was charged as an accessory and with child endangerment. The video was so clear, so damning, that bail was set impossibly high. The news picked up the story immediately. Parents pour boiling water on daughter for crying wrong. Teen's hidden camera captures horrific abuse. The video wasn't released publicly, but screenshots were. Dad holding the kettle, Mom mid-clap, my arms afterward. The community response was immediate and overwhelming. A GoFundMe for my medical bills raised $50,000 in 2 days. The college that had rejected me called, explaining they'd received my father's call and suspected something was wrong. They offered me a full scholarship on the spot. But the burns were severe. I needed skin grafts on parts of my arms. The healing process was excruciating, months of treatment and physical therapy. The scars would be permanent, twisted patterns of healed tissue that looked like abstract art made from pain. During the trial, the prosecution played the video for the jury. Several jurors cried. One had to leave the room. The image of Mom clapping while I sat there with boiling water, destroying my skin, was beyond comprehension. Dad's lawyer tried to argue it was a momentary loss of control, but the prosecutor destroyed that. He wrapped a towel around the handle, she pointed out. He knew it was hot. He aimed for her arms. He poured deliberately. This was torture, plain and simple. Mom's lawyer went for the abused spouse's defense, claiming she was scared of Dad too. But the video showed her laughing, clapping, making jokes. No fear, just cruelty. When it was my turn to testify, I wore short sleeves deliberately, letting everyone see the scars. They said my pain was worthless, I testified. That my crying was too quiet to be real. But pain doesn't need to be loud to be valid. Suffering doesn't need an audience to be real. They wanted me to scream, but I stayed silent because I knew the camera was watching. My silence let them show exactly who they were. I looked at them for the last time. You poured boiling water on me because I wasn't crying correctly. But I wasn't crying about college. I was crying because I realized I'd never had parents, just tormentors who happened to share my DNA. Dad got 25 years, the maximum for attempted murder with aggravating factors. Mom got 15 as an accessory. Both permanently lost all parental rights. Patricia and her family took me in for the rest of my senior year. She helped me through the surgeries, the skin grafts, the physical therapy. Marcus drove me to every appointment, sat through every treatment, reminded me I was more than my scars. The college scholarship came through as promised. I'm studying criminal justice now, with a focus on domestic violence law. My professors say I have unusual insight into victim psychology. I don't tell them it's because I lived it. My arms are scarred permanently. The skin is tight in places, rippled in others, a landscape of survival written in healed burns. But I don't hide them. When people ask, I tell them the truth. My father thought my pain was too quiet, so he tried to make it louder. Instead, he made it visible. And visible pain can't be ignored. The nanny cam footage exists in multiple places now: court records, police files, my lawyer's office. 43 seconds of video that changed everything. Dad holding the kettle, Mom clapping, me silent in the corner as my skin burned. I still can't stand the sound of whistling kettles. But I drink tea every morning, making it with an electric kettle that doesn't whistle, doesn't scream. Just quietly heats water for its actual purpose: comfort, not torture. Sometimes I watch other people cry, in movies, in real life, and notice how different everyone's pain sounds. Some wail, some sob, some stay silent like I did. All of it real, all of it valid. There's no wrong way to cry, despite what my parents believed. The last time I saw them was at sentencing. As they led Dad away in shackles, he turned to look at me one more time. I raised my scarred arms and waved goodbye. He flinched and looked away. For the first time in my life, he couldn't stand to see what he'd done. Mom never looked at me at all. Her last words in court were, "It was just water." The judge's response was carved into my memory. "It was boiling water, ma'am. And your applause made you just as guilty as if you'd poured it yourself." I graduate next year. Patricia and Marcus will be in the audience, along with the family I've built from friends, mentors, and survivors like me. My arms will be covered by my graduation gown, but at the party afterward, I'll wear something sleeveless. I always do for celebrations now. Because these scars aren't my shame, they're my evidence. They're proof that I survived something designed to break me. They're proof that even when pain is too quiet, it still matters. They're proof that sometimes the most powerful scream is silence, especially when a camera is watching. The kettle that night whistled for exactly 2 minutes and 37 seconds before Dad picked it up. I know because the nanny cam recorded it all. 2 minutes and 37 seconds that ended my childhood and began my freedom. Now, when I hear a kettle whistle, I don't hear a threat. I hear a reminder. I survived the boiling water. I survived them. And my pain, quiet or loud, was always real.